velvet house at the edge of sleep. Pure narration format begins now. I don't remember falling asleep, but I know I didn't wake up where I should have. My name is Lena Gray, and I was just supposed to house sit. That's it. Water the plants, feed the koi, turn the lights on and off so the place didn't look empty. The owners were art collectors, wealthy, eccentric, private. Their home sat alone at the end of a winding road surrounded by fog-drenched pines. The neighbors told me it was called La Villa delle Ombre, the House of Shadows, but I thought that was just a nickname. Until the paintings started whispering. The house had no windows. Only crimson curtains hung in places where windows should have been. They never moved, not from wind or touch. Behind them was nothing. No walls, just a depthless black. On my first night, I tried to peek behind one of them. It screamed. Not like a person, like something falling through time. By the second night, I stopped trying to understand the house and started taking notes. That's when the hallway changed lengths while I was walking down it. The koi in the pond had too many eyes. The fireplace crackled even when unlit, and always whispered in Italian, which I don't speak. Not really, but now, I do. On the third night, I discovered the room of red glass. It wasn't on any blueprint. I swear it hadn't existed before. I walked past a mirror in the upstairs hall, and instead of my reflection, I saw a door behind me. A red one. When I turned around, it was real, and slightly open. Inside, the room was filled with mannequins dressed in antique opera costumes, masks of animals with open mouths. Above them, hung like a chandelier, was a woman made entirely of threads. Her face was mine, and she began to sing. It was a lullaby I hadn't heard since childhood. My mother used to hum it, but she died before I could ever ask where she learned it. The thread woman's voice filled the house. The koi came to the surface and stared. The paintings melted into their frames. The door behind me sealed shut without a sound. I haven't left the room since. I don't need food or water. I sleep when she sings. I wake to find the mannequins have changed places. Some nights, one is missing. The walls pulse like lungs. My phone only shows footage of myself sleeping, even when I'm awake. Every clock in the house strikes 3:33 over and over, no matter the hour. There is no front door anymore. There is no outside. There is only the velvet house and the girl who was hired to watch it, and she's watching still. 2. The mirror apartment above the flower shop. Pure narration begins now. You don't rent apartment 5.5. It finds you. I was living above a flower shop on Doran Street in a building that wasn't listed online, on maps, or even on my lease. My address simply ended in 5, but there was always a door between apartments 5 and 6, painted white and locked with an ornate mirror hung on its front. The mirror was always cold, even in summer. If you whispered to it, it whispered back, your voice, but reversed. The landlord told me never to touch it. It's decorative, he said. Just ignore what's behind it. Nothing you want lives there. The flower shop below me never closed. Even at 3 a.m., its yellow lights bled into my floorboards. I would hear footsteps through the night, soft, looping steps that seemed to replay like an old record. Every morning, fresh lilies were left on my doorstep, tied with red ribbon. I thought someone had a crush. Then I looked out my window and realized my building had no upper floor. Apartment 5.5 didn't exist, except from inside. The first time the mirror door creaked open, it was because I dropped my keys. They slid under the crack and vanished. I swear I was only looking for them, but the next thing I knew, I was inside a second apartment, identical to mine, except reversed. The lights were dim and blue, as if underwater. My furniture was wrong, older, Victorian, dustless. The walls were covered in frames, but no photographs. Only blank, glinting glass. My reflection was in every one, but she didn't blink when I did. She watched. From inside, I turned to leave, but the mirror was gone. Behind me, the doorway was bricked over in pink plaster. My phone showed no service. My texts came back as echoes of things I never wrote. "Thank you for feeding her," one said. "She sleeps better now." The bed was warm, as if someone had just left it. I stayed one night. One was all it took. By morning, I was back in my real apartment, but it was reversed. My birthmark was on the wrong side of my face. My cat didn't recognize me. The flower shop owner, who'd always smiled, screamed when he saw me. Now sometimes I see myself watching from the mirror across the room. Not my reflection. Me. The other me. The one who stayed too long on the wrong side. Story 3. The Forgotten Room at the end of the looping hallway. They never built the hallway that long. I moved into the Escarin, a renovated Art Deco building known for its distorted floor plan and warped geometry. It was advertised as an architect's hallucination brought to life. Cheap rent, good view of the fog, but the halls, God, the halls, they moved. At first I thought I was just tired. The hallway outside my unit, apartment 3F, didn't end where it should. If I walked 5 steps past my neighbor's door, I'd hit a blank wall. Then 10 steps, then 20. Then the hallway just kept going. No windows, just ornate red wallpaper that bled when scratched. I brought it up to the concierge, a man with a glass eye and a name tag that simply read Mer. He handed me an old brass key and said, "If the hall keeps going, it means she wants you to see something. Use this if you get scared." The next time I walked the endless hall, I counted my steps. By 60, I had passed 4 light fixtures that weren't there before. At step 101, I found the door. It wasn't numbered. It didn't even seem to be a door at first, just a seam in the wall. But the handle was a keyhole made of bone, and the brass key turned with a sound like someone gasping awake. Inside was a single, vast room with a floor of checkerboard tiles and ceiling fans that spun slowly backward. There were windows, dozens of them, but they showed scenes that didn't match reality. One revealed a swamp at midnight, where a blindfolded woman stood motionless beneath a blood moon. Another showed a hospital ward that seemed to stretch forever, beds full of people sleeping in perfect stillness. And one window showed my apartment. Me, sitting on the couch, frozen, except I wasn't alone. A tall figure in a waxy coat was seated beside me, whispering into my ear, and I didn't move, didn't even flinch. I reached toward the window and the glass rippled. Behind me, I heard a dragging footstep. I turned, and the room was full of people, but not people. They were too still, like mannequins or memories left in formaldehyde. They wore hospital bracelets. They twitched only when you weren't looking. One of them had my face, but older, worn down. Her eyes were sewn shut with black thread. I ran. The hallway was longer this time. It shifted as I moved, growing arms and corners and extra doors. Sometimes I swear I passed myself. Sometimes I think I still haven't found my apartment again. The key hangs around my neck like a warning, and every so often a new door appears at the end of the hallway. No number, no noise. Just the low, humming silence of something waiting to be remembered. Attic apartment above me without ever opening the front door. I heard the furniture first, dragged across the ceiling, day and night. She rearranged the space constantly. Sometimes she whispered while she did it. Not words, just counting. No one saw her arrive. I checked the building's registry. Apartment 7A had been vacant since the fire, and yet she lived there. I heard her pacing, humming. I saw shadows slip across her window at odd angles. There were no stairs to the attic, not anymore. They were sealed off with rusted chains and a deadbolt that smelled like cold metal and mildew. Then one night, my clock stopped. Not just the wall clocks, not just the oven. Time stopped. The world outside my window froze in place. Birds hung mid-flight, streetlights paused in the moment of flickering, and I heard her laugh, very softly, through the ceiling vent. I knocked on the ceiling with a broom. Her laugh grew louder. Then my phone buzzed. From unknown. Do not ask her what time it is. She remembers the other clocks. The next morning, I found a note on my kitchen table in violet ink. She doesn't live in the attic. The attic lives inside her. My neighbor down the hall, Mr. Callis, saw her once. Said he ran into her in the stairwell. She smelled like mothballs and cinnamon. Her eyes were older than the building. She asked him what time it was. Just a simple question. He's missing now. The police came, found nothing. The officers walked up the stairs but never reached the top. Their walkie-talkies played back music from 50 years ago. They came back down with gray hair and no memories of having gone up at all. I left a camera running, just to see. The footage showed my apartment, normal, quiet, until 3:33 a.m. Then the walls began to breathe. My furniture aged rapidly, splintering and collapsing into antique dust. And in the top right corner of the frame, her face appeared upside down, as if crawling along the ceiling from above. She inhaled once, sharply, and every second on the timestamp blinked out like a dying firefly. They say she's not a person anymore, that the fire in 7A twisted time around her. She walks in loops, breathes in moments, eats memories. I saw her again last night. She was standing in my mirror, brushing her hair. Behind her, the reflection showed my childhood bedroom, even though I haven't been there in decades. She asked me what time it was. I didn't answer. I just held up the brass key I found inside the wall, and her reflection flinched like I'd slapped her. I locked the mirror. Yes, you can lock a mirror if you know how. But the ticking started again at midnight. Slow, wet ticks, like a dying watch made of teeth. And this morning, my reflection looked 10 years older. She's inhaling again, breathing in what's left of me. He moved into the vacant unit across from mine sometime in the dead hours of the night. I didn't hear a truck, no boxes, no footsteps. But when I opened my door that morning, his apartment door was wide open, and there he was, walking backward through his living room as if rewinding through his own life. He didn't blink. He didn't speak. He made eye contact with me and smiled in a way that felt backward, like the expression began with sorrow and twisted into joy in reverse. Then he stepped backward into the kitchen, hands undoing the act of washing a glass, water dripping upward into the faucet. The next day, I heard the door slam, in reverse. The sound warped, like tape spooling the wrong direction. A second later, the air outside his apartment smelled faintly of spoiled milk and perfume. That night, I watched through the peephole. He walked to the front door backwards, raised a cup, and spoke, "I remember tomorrow." Then the light bulbs in my ceiling fixture exploded. I started losing time. Not in chunks, in rewinds. I'd wake up halfway through brushing my teeth with a mouthful of mint and no memory of lifting the brush. Like sometimes I'd already be standing outside the elevator before I decided to leave my apartment. I knocked on his door. He opened it in slow motion. Behind him, the apartment was entirely upside down. The furniture was on the ceiling. The floor was covered in pale blue sky. A grandfather clock ticked backwards, and every photo on the walls showed scenes I hadn't lived through yet. Me, older, frightened, crying, holding things I've never owned. I asked him what he did for a living. He answered before I finished the question. I will have been an archivist of forgotten lives, people erased by chronology. And then he whispered something that made my skin go cold. You're next. You just haven't been yet. The nightmares started after that. Except I wasn't dreaming. Every night I'd go to bed and wake up having lived tomorrow already. I'd remember events that hadn't happened yet. Conversations out of sync. A car crash on 9th Street that I swore I saw, but didn't happen until days later. I tried filming him. My phone would glitch. The footage played in reverse. His voice spoke in backward Latin. I took it to an audio engineer. He isolated a segment of reversed audio and played it forward. It said, "He is becoming the echo of someone who has not died yet." He left me a note, slid it under my door. The handwriting was mine. It read, "Don't answer when he knocks. If you do, you become his yesterday." That night, he knocked. I didn't answer, but my reflection did. It smiled at him through the peephole. My reflection winked, opened the door inside the mirror. He walked in. Now when I sleep, I hear clocks ticking backward. My neighbors say they haven't seen me in days, even though I've been home. I watch the surveillance footage from the hallway. I don't appear on camera anymore, but he does. And last night, I walked backward into my bedroom, humming a tune I haven't heard yet. I don't think I'm living forward anymore. I think I'm becoming his memory. Not foul, not quite. It was like old incense, copper and ozone, like the air after a lightning strike, mingled with the sterile scent of unopened books and someone else's sweat. The smell came from apartment 4B, directly above me. No one had lived there for 3 years. That's what the building manager said. But every night at 3:14 a.m., I heard the sound of a pen scratching against paper. Constant. Precise, like someone writing a letter on very dry parchment. Then came the voices. They whispered just above my ceiling, speaking in overlapping tongues, some English, some not. Some voices were children, some were gargled like they were underwater. Sometimes I heard my name in the middle of it. I recorded it. Played the tape back. On the audio file, the scratching noise resolved itself into words. I didn't write them, but I saw them. I am the one who catalogs what you forget. Each time you blink, I write another line. You are not the author of your life. I am. The next morning, every mirror in my apartment fogged over with writing in reverse script. I wiped them clean and found dates. 12 dates, future ones. with names I didn't recognize. I tried looking one up, found a man with that exact name, reported missing last year. His body had been found inside a sealed room full of handwritten notebooks, all filled with someone else's memories. Curiosity consumed me. I went up to 4B. The door was unlocked, but sealed with masking tape and wax. A small sign above the knob read, "Do not disturb the archivist's shadow." I stepped inside anyway. There were no lights, just walls lined floor to ceiling with filing cabinets, mismatched drawers and card catalogs from different eras, decades, maybe centuries apart. Some metal, some wood. One looked like it had been grown rather than built. In the far corner sat a shape, a man, but not moving, just sitting in front of a desk stacked high with old letters, black envelopes, and things that looked like teeth pressed between pages. I tried to speak. My mouth made no sound. The figure raised a hand. In it, a long black quill, dripping dark ink. His face was obscured by a veil of black gauze, thick and soaked in something moving. He spoke in a voice made of paper tearing. "I've been writing you slowly, line by line, day by day. You've only just noticed." I turned to leave. The door was gone. In its place was a drawing of me, scratched in blood-red ink with the words, "Do not exit until finished." He stood up. Behind him, the walls peeled back to reveal shelves of skin, stretched and dried, covered in thousands of tiny handwritten memories. Some were mine. The time I cried alone under the stairs when I was 8. A birthday I forgot. A lie I told my mother before she died. Things I hadn't told anyone, not even myself. Then I saw them, the others. Dozens of shadow-like silhouettes pinned behind glass, twitching, their mouths sewn shut with thread made of calendar pages. Every one of them held a book still being written, and I realized they were people who had tried to remember too much, or tried to forget the wrong thing. The archivist's shadow collects those memories, stores them, and once he starts writing you, he never stops. I awoke in my bed. I thought it was a dream, until I found the drawer in my kitchen filled with slips of old yellowed paper, each one in my handwriting, detailing events I haven't lived yet. The last one read, "At 3:14 a.m., you will go back to apartment 4B. You will knock. He will open the door. You will thank him for finishing you." It's 3:13 a.m. right now, and my legs are moving on their own. Let me know. I bought the house because of the front porch. That's what I told people. It overlooked a valley of mist. The trees never lost their leaves. It was like a pocket of time had folded around the property and preserved it in late October. But no one mentioned what happened after you stepped through the door, because the house had no inside. The real estate listing was vague. Restoration needed, no photos available of interior. The agent avoided my questions, just kept pushing the porch, the land, the view. She handed me the skeleton key and said, "If you hear the voices, don't answer. That's how it gets in." I laughed, thinking it was one of those small-town quirks. When I finally stepped inside, I expected cobwebs, old furniture, dust. Instead, I walked into a hallway that curved downward like a spiral shell. The air wasn't stale. It was humid, warm, and thick with the smell of soil and static electricity. The inside didn't match the exterior. I turned around and the front door was gone, replaced with a blank wall of pulsing, breathing wood. There were no rooms, just one endless corridor, and on each wall painted doors, crudely sketched in charcoal, each with a handle drawn in bright red. The first door I touched buzzed under my fingers. "Do not open what was never built," a voice whispered from the floorboards. So I moved on. Eventually I found a single real door. It was wooden, flaking, and had a glass knob full of trapped light, like someone had bottled a sunrise. I turned it and walked in. Inside was a room full of shattered televisions, all tuned to static, but the static wasn't random. When I listened closely, the screens hummed in unison, like a chant. The TV in the center showed my face, but sleeping. Behind me, a door slowly opened. I spun around. There was nothing there, except a note on the floor that read, "Every time you sleep here, your dream becomes part of the house." I ran, down the corridor, through another door. This one opened to a staircase that led into a field, though I was still indoors. The sky overhead was made of stained glass, and shadows of birds moved beneath it, as if the sun was above the ceiling. The grass was black, and each blade whispered, "He's awake now. He's not happy." I found another door. A kitchen, but ancient. Everything was rusted and the stove burned without fire. The sink bled ink. A woman with no face stood motionless in the corner, stirring something in a pot that didn't exist. When I stepped closer, she turned, not with her head, but her whole body like a puppet being rotated. She opened her mouth, and from it spilled a recording. The sound of my voice, from a voicemail I'd left my sister the night she died. I should have come by sooner. Something's wrong with the dreams. The spiral went deeper. There were rooms full of floating shoes, hallways that shrank you, one space where you could hear music only if you wept. And then I reached it. A vast chamber, hollow and black, shaped like a cathedral with no roof. All the fake doors from earlier were here, suspended in the air. Beneath each one was a name, scrawled in dust. Mine was there too. The house wasn't a house. It was a trap, a living library of possible selves, of memories unchosen, dreams unformed. The deeper you went, the more versions of you it stored. And once you found your door, it would offer you a choice. Leave through the door you opened, or stay and become another blueprint. I ran. I screamed. I tried every wall, every ceiling, every trick. Eventually, I woke up, back on the front porch, just like that. But something was off. My shoes were wet. My socks had black grass stuck to them. And in my pocket was a small, broken shard of stained glass, humming with bird shadows. I haven't slept since, because when I do, the house waits for me. And every time I dream, I come back a little closer to the center, a little closer to the door with my name on it. Please, surreal. I was driving across Nevada, somewhere between nowhere and should have stayed home, when the desert began to disappear. I don't mean darkness fell, I mean the land fell away, like a painting being peeled from glass, and in its place, a neon flicker, a roadside sign, blazing red and blue. Welcome. The air is clean, the beds are warm, the dreams are not yours. The motel sat against nothing. No road led to it, no name, just a vacancy light pulsing like a heartbeat. And still I pulled in. The clerk had no face, just a mirror where her head should have been. Every time she turned, the mirror stayed facing me. She handed me a room key. It was shaped like an eye. Room 17. I didn't tell you my name, I said. The mirror tilted. In it, I saw myself years older, pale, mouth sewn shut, scratching numbers into a wall. We've been expecting you, she said, but her mouth didn't move. The voice came from a tiny speaker embedded in the counter. The hallway was wrong, too long, too curved. It bent in on itself like the spine of a dying snake. Room 217 appeared 3 separate times before I tried the key. Only the third one opened. Inside was home. Not my real home, something stranger, a dream of home. The furniture was made of books I hadn't written yet. The light was wet, and the window looked out into my old high school, except it was night, and every light was blinking in Morse code. W-A-K-E. I closed the curtains. That night, I dreamt I was in room 216. There was knocking on the wall, someone whispering numbers backwards. I saw a shape in the mirror, a man with no eyes holding a photograph of me as a child, except my face was replaced with static. I woke to the sound of water dripping. The sink was bleeding black oil. On the mirror was written, "Turner." They buried the motel under the desert in 1973. No one was meant to find it. I asked the clerk about it the next morning. She offered me a cup of something that shimmered like motor oil and flickered like film. Memory tea, she called it, to help you settle in. No thanks. You've already been here 7 nights. Are you sure you want to check out early? I told her I'd just arrived yesterday. She printed a receipt, 7 nights, all signed in my handwriting, dated next week. Things got worse. Every time I left the room, something had shifted. The lobby had a second ceiling, upside down. Room 215 smelled like static and roses and cooked copper. I watched a man climb into the vending machine and disappear. The pool in the courtyard was infinite downward, reflecting stars that didn't exist. Every hallway echoed with the sound of dial-up internet and children crying. I finally broke into room 214. Inside was a map made of skin, stretched over a motel bed. Every guest's name was written on it in ink that moved like ants. Mine was there. Beneath it, a question burned into the flesh. How many times have you stayed? I touched it, and everything glitched. For a moment, I saw every version of me who had ever stayed. Some were guests, some were staff, some were wallpaper. The final night came with no warning. The mirror woman handed me a different key, room 0. No one leaves until they check out from 0, she said. Room 0 wasn't in the building. I had to walk behind it through a hallway of televisions, each playing moments from my life I had forgotten. First kiss, a fight with my dad, my old dog looking back at me through a rainy window. Then, room 0, a plain wooden door set in a mirror version of the motel, under a sky made of static and cloudless fear. Inside room 0, a spiral staircase going down through time. Each level was a version of the motel from a different year, 1997, 1982, 2004. Each staffed by a slightly different me. Each begged me to stay. Each said, "You promised to remember." At the bottom, an office, walls made of newspaper clippings. Local motel burns to ground in 73. Man vanishes along desert highway, only room key found. Strange signals detected near ghost structure. I turned to leave, and the mirror woman blocked the exit. "You always leave," she said, "but we always keep the dreams." I don't know how I got out, but when I came to, I was back on the highway. The motel was gone. Only the key remained in my pocket, shaped like an eye, still blinking. And last night, I saw it again. Off the side of the road, no signs, no lights, but I swear I saw my reflection waving from the lobby window. No one lives in house number 9. Haunted house, neighborhood legend, forbidden return. Everyone in my neighborhood knows not to talk about house number 9. It's been empty for decades. The windows are black. The grass never grows. And yet every Thursday morning, the garbage can is full. When I was a kid, my friend Jace dared me to touch the front door, said it was just an old house with bad wiring. I walked up the steps, knocked once, and something knocked back. We ran. 2 days later, Jace vanished. His bike was found in front of the house, upright, still spinning. Now, 30 years later, I drove past it again, and I swear I saw Jace standing in the window. Same clothes, same bike helmet, same look in his eyes. He looked older now, but only by 2 days. 2. The house that changed its address. Untraceable house, shifting location, impossible return. I rented a small home on the edge of a quiet town, tucked into a cul-de-sac that didn't exist on any map. The landlord said it was temporary housing, cheap rent. No questions. Every night I heard voices beneath the floorboards. Not whispers, full conversations. They repeated in loops, always ending in a scream I never heard begin. I left after a week. When I tried to return with police, the house was gone. Lot was empty, no foundation, no records, no rental history. But a week later, I found the same house in a completely different town. Same number, same red curtains, and someone new was living inside. They looked just like me. Sha3. The family that never left. New homeowners, trapped family, repeating hauntings. When we moved into the farmhouse, the seller warned us not to use the basement, said it was structurally unstable. We listened for the first month. Then we found the hatch under the rug. I opened it. At the bottom of the stairs were chairs, still warm, dinner plates, dustless shelves, and a mirror that didn't reflect us. It showed a family seated at the table. Our family. Same faces, but their mouths were sewn shut. When we backed away, they stood up, and one of them whispered, "Don't leave us here again." The hatch slammed shut. We've been trying to move ever since, but no one can find our address. Even on Google Earth, we're not there. 4. Room 0 doesn't exist, but I lived in it. Impossible floor plan, vanishing tenant, architectural horror. I was subletting a unit in a Victorian-style house with split rooms labeled A through G. The hallway ended in room 7. But on the third night, I found a door labeled Shh. It was never there before. I opened it. Inside, wallpapered walls, antique furniture, and the sound of breathing that didn't match mine. No windows. Just a bed that was already warm. Every time I closed my eyes in room 0, I saw my apartment's hallway. But the lights were off, and someone was always walking toward me. I tried to move out. My stuff was gone. Lease terminated. I checked the building layout. There's no room 0, but I still get mail addressed to it. #5. They keep moving back in. Previous family never left. Welcome notes from the dead. The house we bought was beautiful. High ceilings, big porch. Cheap because of an incident, the realtor said. We moved in anyway. The first week, I found a note under the fridge. "We don't mind sharing. Just don't open the attic." We thought it was a prank. Then came the footsteps. The dirty dishes left out, the second toothbrush in the bathroom that none of us used. We opened the attic on the seventh night, found 4 sets of clothing folded neatly, still warm, a mirror with no reflection, and a note pinned to the wall. We told you not to. Now we can't leave. Every time we walk out the front door, we wake up in bed again, and there's always one more plate set at the table. The house that buried itself. Living house, structural hunger, forgotten tenants. There was a property on the edge of the woods that only shows up after it rains. Locals call it the house that buried itself. People say it was built on cursed soil, that the foundation never dried, and the house kept sinking slowly over time, eating its own history. One day, it wasn't on the surface anymore. Then it came back, looking newer, more modern. Each time it rises, it wears a different era like a disguise. 1920s one year, brutalist concrete the next. They say if you step inside, you won't know what decade it is. And when you try to leave, the door just opens to more house. Deeper, older, hungrier. One man claimed he made it out. His hair turned white, his eyes wouldn't focus. When asked what he saw in the basement, he only said, rooms full of people who never realized they'd been eaten.